You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM, Clutch with Keon Rose here on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. Make sure to head to NoogaRadio.com to get access to all of our social media, our Facebook, our Twitter, our YouTube. Check those places out, and you will be learned. You'll be schooled on all the doings and happenings in the greater Chattanooga area. This weekend, the U.S. Open. That's what was on, and I was rooting for my dude Ricky Fowler, who posted a 10 under for the tournament, which is not bad at all when you consider that he played pretty poorly, I thought, on Friday, and then sort of made up for it on Saturday and was pulling it together. But coming down the stretch there again, and I've been saying this for the last few tournaments, and I feel like people are starting to join me on this. Tournament is won again by a guy that I don't know. And I'm not saying that Brooks Koepka is a bad golfer. In fact, once I started to look up Brooks Koepka, once it became apparent, okay, Brooks Koepka is going to win this thing. Once I looked up Brooks Koepka is a really good golfer. He's a really, really good golfer. He just hasn't won. And he is now the 7th different person to win a major in a row. And people are treating this like it's the worst thing ever in golf, right? Like they're treating this like, well, we don't know who's good, and is the quality of the sport dipping, and why can't anybody dominate? And I just thought that the answer to this question was already obvious, which is that golf is a very hard sport to play. Like there's a certain point at which Tiger Woods has made this look easy. And if you go further back, Jack Nicklaus, like they've made this look easy, but it's not, right? Like it's not. Like you look at the careers of Gary Player and Ben Hogan, and you will see spots where those guys were not good. And I think that there is some level of looking at Jack and going, like, there wasn't really a time when Jack wasn't good. Like Jack was just good up until he wasn't. And you can say the same thing for Tiger. Like Tiger was just good up until he wasn't. But there wasn't a stretch in the greatness where there wasn't greatness. Just wasn't. And I think people want to see that because domination and consistency lets you know who's good. If everybody's winning, then nobody's dominating. And then you can never really be certain if anybody is good. Now, to me, golf is possibly the one sport where that's not even in the question. Like, it's such a difficult sport in terms of technically how sound you have to be. It doesn't even strike me as a reality that someone could win the U.S. Open and not be good. Regardless, people have said that this U.S. Open is not the best U.S. Open, right? Like it's when you look at the U.S. Open, there's a certain level of struggle that people want to see in the U.S. Open. They want to see you fight. They want to see you suffer. They want to see you at 2 under and 3 under. And I understand the desire to see the struggle. It's what you watch golf for. It's what you watch golf for. You want to see players overcome the course. And so this idea that Brooks Koepka can win this thing going away at 16 under, I think feels odd to a lot of golf fans. And I think that it also feels very, I don't want to say insulting, but it feels like the course is too easy, especially since that they were playing at Erin Hills in Wisconsin. It's the first time that we've ever had the golf course here. Nobody knew what to expect. We didn't know if it was going to be too hard, if it was going to be too easy. When we got to the tournament, players were complaining already about the quality of the golf course. We had already reached that point, right? We just did not know what to expect. And then more confusing things happen, right? Ricky Fowler has a great day one. So you're like, okay, there's a guy that we know is good winning on day one. Rory McIlroy doesn't make the cut. Jason Day doesn't make the cut. And so we were thrown curveball after curveball. Dustin Johnson doesn't make the cut. So you're looking at this and going, what is wrong with this U.S. Open? But I think that the U.S. Open was fine. Like the desire to panic and crown this not a legitimate U.S. Open. This is not a real U.S. Open. This is not my pappy's U.S. Open because it wasn't played in a traditional U.S. Open golf course like Oakmont or Pebble Beach. Places, by the way, that are notably difficult to play on, right? Like I remember one of the worst U.S. Opens I think I've ever seen was the U.S. Open on Pebble Beach. I think 2 years ago, the 2 or 3 years ago, the Graham McDowell won that one, and everybody was 1 over, 2 over for the day, and that was good. That was a good day, and you were happy to have it. You know, that kind of tournament is the tournament. When you think of the U.S. Open and you think of the challenge of winning it, that's what people want to see. So they look at this and they go, he's 16 under. That's insulting to me. And I think this is worth noting because over at CBS Sports, I thought a great point was made by Kyle Porter, where he basically said the course is fine. People are looking at this and going, we don't like that a guy's 12 under and that he's 10 under. And to me, I always thought that was an indication of how difficult the course was, but it actually isn't. You have to worry. Don't worry so much about the score to par, basically. That Brooks Koepka shot just 4 better than Dustin Johnson's 276 at Oakmont, which means essentially he only was 4 strokes better. He didn't necessarily blow the tournament away. He didn't change the U.S. Open forever because, now it's easy. And by the way, we're not going to be playing at Erin Hills for like another 10 years. So if that's the pom-pom you're waving, we're going to go back to all the places that we know and love because all that stuff's been booked out for at least another 9 years. So we're not going to try this Erin Hills experiment for another decade, essentially. Brooks Koepka, I thought, played a great tournament. I think, yes, he was aided by the fact that it rained. There were other factors there, too, that changed the dynamics of the course. The fact that it rains means that when you hit it on the green, the ball doesn't roll so much. It just sticks there. And you have to give credit to Brooks Koepka, where I think people are using this because, A, we've never heard of Brooks Koepka. Most of us casual fans that just show up for the majors. So I'm one of those. Never heard of Brooks Koepka. Never heard of the guy at all. And you want to discredit his U.S. Open. You want him to be a legitimate contender, somebody that you've heard of in some form or fashion. And I understand that need, and I get it. But stop trying to take stuff away from the guy. Brooks Koepka was historically accurate hitting the greens. I mean, historically accurate to the point where, like Ricky Fowler was on pace, according to like the math, that if he had shot a 72 on Sunday, he should have won the tournament. And Brooks Koepka was so accurate. Ricky Fowler did shoot a 72, tied for 5th. You know, that to me, the level of accuracy that he displayed, the strength that he displayed, I thought that that's something that you just can't take away from the guy simply because he posted a score that you don't like. Right? Because he posted that score in large part because of not just the accuracy, but the length in which he plays the game. Right? And people have been talking about how technology has changed this whole dynamic as well. Right? Like, you could just tabulate all of these factors up to why people did not like this U.S. Open. We played it in a place we've never played it before. And tradition is important in golf. Tradition is important in life, but it's particularly important in golf. We played it in a place we've never played it before. We had weather conditions. The course wasn't well liked. The scores were too low. And you want to add all these things up as to why people didn't like it, but I just think, he's not grateful. You watched a great performance from a guy playing golf, and you add the other thing that people now don't want to give modern golfers credit for is how the technology's changed. The golf balls have changed. The clubs have changed. And yes, all of these things have allowed for golfers to hit with greater distance. But you know what else has allowed golfers the chance to hit for greater distance? The golfers. They've changed. The modern golfer hits the weight room. You lift weights. Rory McIlroy is huge. There was a point in which Tiger Woods was built like an NFL safety. Dustin Johnson, right? Like even Brooks Koepka. Have you seen Brooks Koepka's biceps? Like, that's not a guy I'm trying to fight. And he's a golfer. The reason why these guys are hitting for such distance is in large part because that's how you play golf in the modern day. And again, got to give Tiger Woods some credit for that, in large part because when people started tiger-proofing courses or trying to tiger-proof courses, if you recall, they made the distance impossible. And then that's Tiger Woods. After that, he started hitting the weight room, and he continued to tear up courses that were designed to stop him. But what ended up happening, of course, is that every younger golfer coming behind Tiger Woods is like, oh, I need to hit distance. I need to hit this ball farther than anyone's ever hit it if I want to have a chance on these courses. And that's the way the new golf course looks. That's the way the technology has shaped itself. And that's the way that these golfers have changed themselves too. That you have golfers on strict diets and training regimens and routines where you didn't have that before in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Like the reason why these guys are nailing the ball and it's going 300 yards and 120 miles an hour and all of that stuff is because the golfers have changed, if anything, right? Like you can talk about the technology, but the training has changed a ton. And so like there's just plenty to give these guys credit for, that you're still watching the best in the world. And yes, you want to see two things in golf. You want to see somebody dominate, and you're not seeing that. And you want to see a struggle, and it didn't feel like there was a struggle. But there is something to be said for watching excellence, right? Like sure, a struggle is great, but every now and then, isn't it nice to just see somebody do it easily? I don't know. I enjoyed the Warriors winning, so I suppose that tells you a lot about me more so than anybody else. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Also, I want to jump to college football really quickly because I read an article, and I don't want to say it made me mad, but I disagreed with it definitely. Because it was on SEC Country, and SEC Country, by the way, is a fantastic blog. I like it a lot. If you love SEC football and you like being on the internet, SEC Country is a great place to go to. And they had a story about the quarterback transfers in SEC football becoming an epidemic, and and citing these stats, right, about how many recruits came in, how many people stayed, how many transferred, what was the retention rate. And as of 2016, we were up to 75%, where there were 8 recruits entering the SEC. 6 of them stayed, 2 of them transferred, right? So their retention rate is about 75% this year, which is pretty decent. But there have been years where the retention rate was 0%, like in 2012 and 2011, where there were 9 recruits in total. Absolutely none of them stayed. And I don't think that this is an epidemic. I think to describe this as an epidemic is to somehow suggest that the schools have no say in the matter. None whatsoever when it comes to keeping these athletes on the team. And apart from being just plain wrong, kind of just speaks to how it is that we think about college football players. Like they should just go to the school, do what they tell them to do, and nothing else. That's what we want, but you can't play both sides of the fence, which is what college football programs do. You play both sides of the fence. You recruit a guy, you want a guy to be committed to you, but then you don't stay committed to him. Let's take a look at the people who have transferred out of college football or transferred out in college football that are going to be making an impact in just 2017 alone. West Virginia, Will Grier. Will Grier transferred out of Florida. And part of it was that he got caught up with possibly a performance-enhancing situation, and you wanted that change of scenery. But it looked like Florida was really easily going to move on from Will Grier for that. And rather than stick around and find out, he transferred to West Virginia. He's going to be an explosive offense with Dana Holgorsen. What's wrong with that? Why not transfer out and give it a shot? Here is a situation in which The SEC benefited from a quarterback transfer, Jarrett Stidham, moving from Baylor. Part of it was the injury. He didn't know what his chances were starting for that squad. He proved that he can play a little bit. And Baylor is caught up in a lot of scandals that might make it very difficult to compete. He transfers to Auburn. The SEC is actually helped by this transfer into their conference. Blake Barnett transfers away from Alabama after Jalen Hurts gets the starting job and leapfrogs him to wind up being the starter. So now Blake Barnett going to get the chance to start at Arizona State. Brandon Harris, North Carolina. Danny Etling comes in, steals his job, and we just sort of decided we were moving away from Brandon Harris. Didn't even really give Brandon Harris a chance in the Matt Canada system. Brandon Harris just decided he was out. And I don't really blame him. If you know you're not going to start, that's what you came to school to do. And so this is why I'm saying that they're playing both sides of the fence. They want athletes to show up and be committed to them, but they won't stay committed to the athlete. You're recruiting a 4 or 5-star guy. The guy knows he's a 4, a 5-star guy, which means you're recruiting me because you want me to be a starter. And I want to be a starter because I want to play. And I like to be able to show off my talents for NFL scouts to see if I can turn this thing into some kind of career. So when you recruit a guy, there is some kind of unspoken thing going on there where the guy believes that he is the starter eventually, right? Maybe he's not going to be the starter freshman year or even sophomore year. He's going to be redshirted at some point. But when it's his time to start, he wants to know that it's his. That's commitment. But you won't commit to that, right? Let's take Blake Barnett in Alabama, for instance. Blake Barnett was a senior there. They moved on to Jalen Hurts. And I think that was the right decision to move on to Jalen Hurts. He had an incredible season. He played very well. He complemented their offense and Lane Kiffin very well. I thought that was the right decision to make. But then don't get mad at Blake Barnett for taking his talents elsewhere, because the commitment didn't go both ways. And this is where a lot of college football programs feel like the overzealous boyfriend. The overzealous boyfriend that doesn't mind looking at other women, but somebody else looks at his girl funny and all of a sudden he wants to fight. Like that's that guy. You want to be on both sides of the fence, and you can't be. You cannot say that we've got quarterback transfers as an epidemic, but then we have freshmen leapfrogging juniors and seniors to be able to start, because that's not the way it used to work. It used to be if you were an upperclassman, even if you weren't necessarily better, you got the start. Maybe you lost your job throughout the season, but nobody ever thought we show up for fall practice and I lose my job to a freshman. That would have been unthinkable 15 years ago, because there's a level of commitment that comes along with that. I'm an upperclassman. I've been here. I've been putting in the work and the time with this team. This guy just showed up. He just came out of high school. He's scrawny. He's skinny. He hasn't put in the time in the weight room like I've put in the time in the weight room. I understand the offense. Nope, just lost your job to a freshman. That's how it works in 2017. And so long as schools are not going to be committed to starting guys, then guys are going to leave. And that is the mobility that makes this thing work. That's capitalism. That's what it is. Everybody has the choice to move. If a company does something that I don't like, right? They harm the environment, just blatantly endangering baby seals. I don't have to buy their product. As their customer, I can move. Right? Like that's why we don't necessarily like monopolies. That's why we don't like giant conglomerates, because it doesn't give you the mobility to move if you don't like what they're doing. College athletes have the ability to move, and I think college football is better for it. If a guy can move somewhere that he can play, whether that's moving to a smaller school or moving to a school that doesn't have a quarterback, it raises the quality of football everywhere, rather than, you know what, you got 4 quarterbacks on your roster. You start one, and the other 3 guys are just stuck there. There is no epidemic of transferring in college football, because an epidemic implies that any of the stuff that's happening in all of this is bad. And it's not true. We are aiding the quality of the sport, and a lot of teams that need help at quarterback have gotten help at quarterback. And the SEC is a conference that has been hampered by its lack of quarterback play. Oh, look, Jarrett Stidham to Auburn. Watch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Multiple drive-by shootings in the Chattanooga area. The first one on Wilcox Boulevard. A man was driving along when gunshots rang out. He was hit and was involved in a car crash. EMS rushed him to the hospital. The other on 20th Street and Market. When gunshots rang out, another man was hit multiple times. He also rushed to the hospital. Violent crimes investigators trying to find out who the shooter is. A fiery crash on Man Gap Road. Life Force helicopters extricating victims and rushing them to the hospital. Children trapped inside a car next to another burning car. One person was killed. The Sheriff's Office traffic crimes investigators are trying to find out exactly how this crash happened. Cleanup operations are now underway after the festival left tons of garbage on Ross's Landing. They're hoping to get the roads open and the area cleared for public use as soon as possible. Riverside Drive between Martin Luther King and the Veterans Bridge still closed. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Expect drier and less humid weather out there through your nighttime hours. Comfortable overnight, lows 63 to 65. For Tuesday, a nice day with some sunshine, highs 85 to 87. For the midweek, continued mainly dry with highs back into the 80s. Personalized medical care for you and your family close to home. Hamilton Physician Group Primary Care in Calhoun is now open at 407 2nd Avenue. For more, 706-529-9041. And I'm Sports Scene 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. EJ Pelton Company, 332-3339.
The American dream. Home ownership. Are you building equity for your landlord? Why not build that equity for yourself and your family? Rent No More is a no obligation, no cost program. It's designed to teach you the steps necessary and to coach you all along the path to home ownership. Integrity Mortgage Group is owned and operated by local expert Jeff Woody Woodburn. Jeff has been in the mortgage business for over 15 years. Born and raised right here in the Chattanooga area. Jeff is also known as the Lone Ranger. He's helped countless hundreds. Really eager to help you too. So don't wait. Come on, call Danielle right now. You need to reserve your spot for this exciting, informative event. Space is limited, so call now to reserve yours. It's free. 423-517-8004. 423-517-8004. Call 423-517-8004. Hey, Nooga Radio is proud to partner with Integrity Mortgage Group to bring you Rent No More. Reserve your spot for this exciting, informative event. Space is limited, so call now to reserve yours. It's free. 423-517-8004. 423-517-8004. Call 423-517-8004. Stop building equity for your landlord. Live the American dream. Homeownership with Rent No More. We'll see you there.
We have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis. You know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling. Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is. Brainerd Road, Rick Davis, Golden Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Golden Diamonds, Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
So we finally have some insight on that argument that Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban got into against Western Kentucky last year, if you recall. And it wasn't really an argument. It wasn't really an argument. It was a one-sided affair where Nick Saban verbally ripped Lane Kiffin's lungs out. Just tore him to shreds. And it felt like, at the time, Nick Saban's the bad guy here. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. It felt like at the time, the bad guy here is clearly Nick Saban. Oh, look, poor Lane Kiffin's on the sideline just getting absolutely destroyed on national television. But further insight into the story tells you what really happened. And here's what really happened. According to AL.com's Craig Stevenson, essentially, Kiffin said that he was saying something along the lines of on the sideline, dumb players make dumb plays, which is all that Nick Saban heard. Nick Saban apparently did not hear anything else, did not know in what context that was said. But I don't know what other context you could use dumb players make dumb plays in. And then Saban snapped back at Lane Kiffin, no, dumb offensive coordinators call dumb plays, and then proceeded to verbally adjust him on the sideline. And neither man commented on it after the game. So we were just left wondering, like, man, what did he say to cause that to happen? Yeah, apparently putting down the players. Granted, I don't think he said it within earshot of the players, but I don't think that that's necessarily an attitude that Nick Saban likes. And say what you want about Nick Saban. Say that Nick Saban and his relationship with the media is at best tense, which is exactly what it is. Say that Nick Saban might not be a nice guy. It is actually kind of mean. Say that Nick Saban puts winning above a lot of other things like virtues and morals. You can say these things about Nick Saban. What you can't say about Nick Saban is that Nick Saban doesn't care about his players. Nick Saban is not out here to rip his players apart. And talk to any Alabama player, right? I've read articles, I've read books, I've read every Alabama player to a man stands behind Nick Saban. All of them. They don't have anything bad to say about Nick Saban. Right? Like that to me says something, because that's not true for every coach. There are some players that just have to say, hey, I don't know if you're a great coach. Or I don't know if you were the nicest person. And there are players that have that kind of thing to say. Like there are players that will stand behind Nick Saban, and they'll stand behind Coach K, and a predictable list of coaches, right? And then there are players that, Charlie Strong was the coach at Texas. And then after they fired him and replaced him with Tom Herman, like players are talking about the difference between playing for Coach Herman and playing for Coach Strong. And they prefer playing for Coach Herman. Not that there was anything even necessarily wrong with Charlie Strong. Just that they prefer playing for Coach Herman. Not every coach is 100% universally beloved. Even a guy like Charlie Strong, who everyone will tell you is like one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Not everyone's universally beloved. And yet, all of Nick Saban's players, they love him. He stands up for them. And that kind of thing is not the kind of thing that Nick Saban's going to tolerate from Lane Kiffin, especially Lane Kiffin, because they disagreed on so many things while Lane Kiffin was coaching at Alabama. They disagreed on what time to wake up in the morning and have meetings. Nick Saban said we start these things early. Lane Kiffin was like, I'm not a morning person. Well, yeah, but I'm your boss. So you're a morning person now. Lane Kiffin wanted to open up the offense even more. Nick Saban was like, let's play this conservative. If we're up by 30, we don't have to open it up more. And they just had philosophical differences all the way down the board. Like they are just opposite people. And while in a lot of ways that paid off, because I don't know that by himself, Nick Saban takes that risk to start Jalen Hurts as a freshman without Lane Kiffin knowing this is a skill set that I can use. This is a skill set that I can get a lot of offensive production out of. I don't necessarily know that by himself, Nick Saban makes that call, because in the history of Nick Saban, he's never started a freshman. Never. Like, everyone's tried to start a freshman once. Nick Saban's never tried. Like, what makes you think he's going to break that now? You know? So I get it. I do. Like, the differences work to their advantage, but the differences also were the seeds of a lot of discomfort and a lot of argument between those two guys. And Nick Saban is about as rigid as they come, in large part because everything that he's ever done has been validated. He keeps winning. What else? What can you question him with? He continues to be successful. What other questions do you have? Understand that you are entering any argument with Nick Saban, if you are entering an argument with Nick Saban, by being wrong. You have to turn the tables and prove that you're somehow right, because you are assumed wrong. You don't know more than him. Right? Like, the success anchors that belief. You're not going to fight Nick Saban and win, which is how, if you're Lane Kiffin, you wind up getting the boot before a national title game. The week before a national title game, they gave you the boot. They just didn't want to hear any more of it. And I'm just thinking, like, how pesky must Lane Kiffin have been to Nick Saban for Nick Saban to say, the week before a championship game, I'm going to fire my offensive coordinator. I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. I will literally run anybody else's offense but his offense right now, with a title on the line. And, they lost that game, but they lost that game on a last-second drive by Deshaun Watson. I mean, a play here and a play there. And who knows if the outcome is different. Nick Saban was willing to risk that to not be working with Lane Kiffin any longer. And you can see why. They just do not see eye to eye on this. And what is this? Everything, man. Everything. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and Noogaradio.com. So the NBA draft is coming up this week, Thursday, I believe. And this is the NBA draft to me that feels most like an NFL draft when you talk about how highly anticipated all of these players are. Because in a typical NBA draft, right, don't we usually know who the best player in the draft is? When it was LeBron, was it not obviously LeBron? Yeah, it was. Like, when it was John Wall, was it not obviously John Wall? when it was Kyrie Irving? Was it not obviously Kyrie Irving? Some drafts it's hard to tell, but those drafts are hard to tell because everyone's kind of mediocre then, right? Like the year that we had Anthony Bennett as the number 1 overall pick, and now Anthony Bennett can't find a basketball. Did we not find ourselves there because everyone was kind of mediocre? Like you go back and look at that draft, it's actually a surprisingly good draft. But at the time, we didn't know, and it felt like everyone was at best average. You just weren't sure. You know? And I think that to me speaks to the nature of the NBA draft, that it's very obvious and very easy to see talent distinguish itself. It's not necessarily easy to draft. Like people still miss in the NBA draft. If we knew back in 2009 that Steph Curry would have been Steph Curry, we would have taken him number 1 and not 7th. People still miss in the draft. But in terms of how obvious a physical traits are and how they translate into the game, the NBA is just tougher than the NFL. And so you end up with these draft conversations that are like, well, okay, forget number 1. Who do you take next? Right? That's the conversation you wind up having. Like, okay. With the exception of that guy, then who do you take? Because that's where you wind up with all of this stuff. And this is the draft that feels most like an NFL draft, where I can't tell you who the best guy is because everybody up top is really, really good. Like, I can't tell you who's best because everybody's really good. And you're looking at the NFL, for instance, like Myles Garrett is a guy that was number 1 in the draft, right? But didn't we have a lot of questions about Myles Garrett? We had questions about Myles Garrett's his heart. We had questions about his sack totals. We had questions about his in-conference performance. I mean, there were so many questions about this guy that we all thought was going to be number 1. And any of these other top prospects, like they go number 1, like you could be surprised a little, but you're not insanely surprised. And that's how it feels in the draft this time, right? Like Markelle Fultz is the guy. And we have lots of questions, actually similar Myles Garrett type questions about Markelle Fultz. Like Markelle Fultz is a freak of nature athletically. But since you are so freaky athletic, how come you didn't play well in big games? How come you missed the tournament? Where were your big time performances? How come your team only won 9 games in an entire season if you're so good? And we have all of these questions, even though we're sure he's number 1. And the reason why you get to entertain any of these questions is because all the other guys are so good. De'Aaron Fox and Lonzo Ball and Josh Jackson. And you could just continue to have these conversations with these guys. And to the point where you've got trading before the day of the draft that I don't recall this happening in an NBA draft in the last handful of years, because there hasn't been anybody that you would feel comfortable sliding down to 3 or sliding down to 4 and getting your guy. That's why this happens so often, right? Like that's why draft day trades and pre-draft day trades happen so much in the NFL, is because the talent is so broad. You do feel comfortable going, okay, if I trade this pick, I can slide down in the draft. I can still get the guy that I want and be cool with it. Right? Like that to me is a good spot to be in. You don't have that in the NBA. Because once you get out of like the top 3 guys, usually there isn't anybody that you'd feel comfortable risking it all for. There are guys that you can draft late that are incredibly impactful. Isaiah Thomas was drafted last. Klay Thompson was drafted 11th. Draymond Green was drafted 35th. There are guys that are in the draft, but no one you feel comfortable sliding down for. Like no one would have felt comfortable sliding down for Klay Thompson, knowing what they knew then. That's what makes this draft feel more like an NFL draft than any other draft, which is that the talent is so rich, especially at the top. You could slide down and still get your guy. Like if someone wants Markelle Fultz and you're the Celtics and you've got the number 1 pick and say you don't want him, you could slide down and try and get your guy, whether that guy is Josh Jackson or whoever else. That is the first time we've had a draft that looked like that, even. And then, of course, when you add the extra mobility of the NBA and people trying to avoid being left without getting something for trade pieces like the Pacers and Paul George, it complicates things further and makes it incredibly, incredibly interesting. Clutch with Keon Rose on M1240 and 92.7 FM. Speaking of which, Paul George has announced that he's going to be going to the Lakers. Now, the Pacers can trade him there, or he can go there as a free agent at the end of next season, but that's where he wants to go. And he said it, just tossed it out into the world and said, this is just what it is. I don't want to be confusing and weird about it. You can trade me now and get something for me, or don't trade me and I will leave as a free agent and you will get nothing. And so it's a beautiful move by Paul George. Absolutely beautiful move. Because now, if they do trade him, they're not going to get much for him because everybody knows that he's leaving at the end of the season. So wherever they trade Paul George to is not going to get destroyed to have Paul George, which was the Carmelo Anthony problem, was it not? That Carmelo Anthony played it stupidly. Like, Paul George is playing this great. Carmelo Anthony played it stupidly. He forced a trade to New York. He forced a trade to the Knicks. And he made all of this noise about wanting to leave, and he didn't like it in Denver, and he wasn't happy, and he wanted to be in New York. He finally gets the trade to the Knicks, only to realize, and I don't know if he realized it when we all realized it, but he realized it eventually. All the talent on the Knicks, the reason why they were a bad team when he got there was they had to trade all the good players to get him. Right? Like, that's a huge problem. That is a fantastically enormous problem to have if you are Carmelo Anthony. That you finally get to the team in the city that you want to be in, and the team's not any good because all the good players got traded for you. Right? Like, you would have had a team that was built with role players. If you had just waited till free agency and walked to New York yourself, you would have had around you Danilo Gallinari and Wilson Chandler and a bunch of guys that alongside of J.R. Smith and Amar Shumpert. Like, you would have had a group of guys that would be great role players circling around you in your prime. Like, the Knicks are now getting decent talent players, but Carmelo's not in his prime any longer. And that team and that entire organization now seems confused. Don't do that. So that's Paul George making the move. Look, I don't want to be traded to the Lakers. I will leave. But if you do think I'm going to leave and you want to trade me, then let me go ahead and lower my value right quick so that I don't end up on a team that's terrible. Because Paul George is 26 years old, which is also incredible. But he's 26 years old and he's not trying to waste his prime on a bad team. Because you think you want to be in Los Angeles. You think you want to be under the bright lights in a big city. Yeah, try going there and losing. See if those fans still like you. They're not going to be happy. The only person who had that level of immunity was Kobe Bryant. The only person that had that level of immunity. And that's because he won first. So he got to stink later. You're just showing up. It's not going to work that way. Paul George is setting himself up to at least be decent. Clutch with Keon Rose at AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. By the way, I just had a thought, by the way, that I was thinking about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant did a very smart thing. Kobe Bryant, we never got to see Kobe Bryant's hairline mess up his whole head because Kobe used to have the afro. Do you remember this? Kobe had the afro, and then one day Kobe just did not have hair. And he was just done. He had the afro, and then one day he did not have hair. Kobe Bryant did not allow his hairline to mess up his whole head. LeBron James is now bald. Think about that. He should have gone bald before any of us noticed. That's really what ended up happening there. He went bald entirely too late, but he did finally go bald. And you know what? He looks better. And he said long ago that he was going to ride the waves out as long as they could go. His waves became a trickle, and he was still riding them out. He's still riding them out. Now LeBron James is bald, and he joins a very long list of athletes that figured this out way too late, that you should have just gone bald in the first place. right? Like the Manu Ginobilis of the world, where you had the bald dome spot in the middle of your head. It's time for it to all go. You're not going to have the hair forever. I think about this frequently. I'm 27 years old. And while I have not had any reason to believe that my hair is going away, the instant that I detect that my hair is going somewhere, I'm bald. You just do that. Just get there. Okay? Some of us get there sooner than others, but everybody's going to have to get there eventually. There is no point in fighting this war. You cannot beat Father Time. He is undefeated, especially when it comes to the hairline of men. He's particularly undefeated there. I feel like that's probably his favorite battleground, even. It's still weird to look at him bald now. I'm just saying, he should have been there earlier. He should have been there decades and decades earlier. Because LeBron's hairline started running away very, very early on. And we all made fun of him for it. The headband just kept going further back and further back and further back. And we all knew what was going on. And he acted like we didn't know. Like we didn't understand what was happening. Like, of course we knew. Right? Like, of course we understood what was going on. LeBron James, finally, getting it done. Shaving the entire head off. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I have a couple more thoughts on the U.S. Open, the state of golf, why we wind up talking about Tiger Woods so much every time we talk about golf. And just a little bit more college football news. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident, raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Picture that curl of steam rising from your fresh-made pizza. And in a flash, let it take you aloft, teasing all your senses. I'm talking about Jet's Pizza. If you eat out at Jet's in Hickson or take home your steaming deep dish square pizza, you'll love Jet's. They use only the best ingredients in a family recipe. Also try the cheesy bread, wings, chicken, or bread with bacon, antipasta or Greek salad. Jet's Pizza at Buy Low near the S-Curves. Open till 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. You can order online or have it delivered. jetspizza.com. That's jetspizza.com. Or call them now. They'll have it ready when you get there. 757-1616. That's 757-1616.
Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hickson Pike. Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
Final expenses, funeral cost, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484. Are you looking for a gospel-oriented, covenantal, family-friendly Reformed church? Dayton Reformed Presbyterian Church is a body of Christ-centered believers gathering for worship on the Lord's Day from around southeastern Tennessee. Our congregation is reformational in its outlook. It has a traditional worship service regulated by the Word of God. Prayer, singing the Psalms, reading God's holy Word, teaching, preaching the Bible, the administration of the sacrament. Dayton Reformed Pres, committed to the authority of the Bible as the inerrant, infallible Word of God. As Westminster Confession of Faith directs every Christian, we aim to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. As a Reformed church, our purpose is teaching and preaching the gospel, making and training disciples of Jesus Christ, taking dominion for our Lord's sake by applying God's holy and perfect law to every area of life. We would be honored to have you join us for worship. Dayton Reformed Presbyterian. This Sunday morning at 11 at Dayton Community Chapel, 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton. Click DaytonRPC.org. Click DaytonRPC.org. 184 Mulberry Avenue, Dayton.
It is Eric Jones hard into the outside wall, and they are still 3 and 4 wide. It looks like we're racing at Talladega.
Caution flag is out. It looked like Denny Hamlin was trying to get by Ricky Stenhouse. Got into the back of Ricky at the line. Man, that's a close one. Matt Kenseth wins stage 1.
Green checkered flag is out, and Brad Keselowski has won stage 2.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. into the wall. That will bring out the caution. Caution waving once again. And again, it's Dale Earnhardt Jr. involved.
Oh, trouble. Ty Dillon has gotten turned to the inside of the racetrack, and Clint Boyer has just nailed him.
Matt Kenseth falling back, the field storming by. Something wrong. Now we see sparks from Kenseth's Toyota.
Larson chops him off. Coming off turn number 2. Nose to tail. Now it's Logano to the high side in 3.
Joey Logano, a winner here at the Richmond International Raceway.
Here at Live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
The voice of NASCAR.
WDLZ HD4 Udawa, W224AZ Chattanooga,
WSDT Sunny Daisy Chattanooga.
The Virginia college student who returned from North Korea in a coma has died.
It's a brutal regime.
The Joint Chiefs Chairman says the U.S. tried to avoid shooting down a Syrian jet.
We made every effort to warn those individuals not to come any closer.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Pam Coulter. The American college student whose adventurous spirit took him to North Korea, where he was held for more than a year and came home in a coma, has died. Otto Warmbier was 22. CBS's Margaret Brennan.
Having spoken to his mom over the course of their ordeal, they were just so frustrated and felt in many ways so helpless because the U.S. has no diplomatic relations with North Korea, and they got such little bits of information about what happened to their son during his captivity over time.
I'm Stephen Portnoy at the White House. The Warmbier family publicly thanked President Trump for securing their son's release. The extent of the injuries he suffered wasn't clear until he arrived here last week. Today, President Trump said he was glad the young man made it home.
It's a brutal regime, and we'll be able to handle it.
Next week, Mr. Trump meets here at the White House with South Korea's newly elected president, who's urged dialogue with the North.
It's an even more tense time in Syria after the U.S. downed a Syrian Air Force jet that had been bombing coalition-aligned forces battling ISIS. Russia has threatened to treat U.S. aircraft in central Syria as potential targets and is quitting the deconfliction effort designed to keep the skies safe for military planes. Joint Chiefs Chairman Joe Dunford.
I'm confident that we are still communicating between our operations center and the Russian Federation Operations Center, and I'm also confident that our forces have the capability to take care of themselves.
Experts say terrorists remain focused on targeting commercial aircraft, and there are renewed fears that they are perfecting ways to attack them. CBS's Jeff Pegues.
U.S. officials are growing increasingly concerned about the capabilities of terrorist organizations to target commercial planes. One source tells CBS News that the threat is evolving rapidly and more terrorists are gaining the knowledge necessary to build a laptop bomb.
A 31-year-old man on a jihadist watch list rammed his car into a police van on the Champs-Elysees today. He died in the incident, but no one else was hurt. CBS's Elaine Cobb in Paris.
It was mid-afternoon on the busy Champs-Elysees when a car overtook a police patrol van and rammed into it. It burst into flames immediately. Now, police believe it was a deliberate attack on the police van. The driver, he was armed.
Stocks hit new highs today. The Dow up 144 points. NASDAQ rose 87. Now this.
With Quicken Loans, the outdated and complicated mortgage process is a thing of the past. Our simple process helps you understand all the details so you can be confident that you're getting the right mortgage. Take your mortgage to the next level and call 800-QUICKEN or go completely online with Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. No matter how you prefer to work with us, we've got what you need to get you through the mortgage process with ease. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the third year in a row, they also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Whether you're looking to purchase or refinance, now is the time. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.23%. Call 800-QUICKEN or get started online at rocketmortgage.com. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidently.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
At the Supreme Court today, a ruling tossing out part of a law banning offensive trademarks, a decision hailed by the owner of the Washington Redskins. CBS's Bill Rakoff.
Sorry if I know it's too sharp. The challenge was brought by the Asian American band The Slants after their attempt to trademark the band name was rejected on the grounds it could be considered offensive. The band's frontman is Simon Tam.
If the government really cared about fighting racism and using the trademark office as a vehicle to do so, they would have begun by canceling registrations for the KKK and other white supremacist groups.
Today's ruling is also a win for the Washington Redskins, whose trademark was banned using the same argument. Bill Rakoff, CBS News.
The justices also agreed to take up a Wisconsin case to determine if GOP state lawmakers went too far in drawing electoral districts, thereby violating the constitutional rights of Democratic voters in the state. You're listening to the CBS.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Multiple drive-by shootings in the Chattanooga area. The first one on Wilcox Boulevard. A man was driving along when gunshots rang out. He was hit and was involved in a car crash. EMS rushed him to the hospital. The other on 20th Street and Market when gunshots rang out. Another man was hit multiple times. He also rushed to the hospital. Violent crimes investigators trying to find out who the shooter is. A fiery crash on Man Gap Road. Life Force helicopters extricating victims and rushing them to the hospital. Children trapped inside a car next to another burning car. One person was killed. The Sheriff's Office traffic crimes investigators are trying to find out exactly how this crash happened. Cleanup operations are now underway after the festival left tons of garbage on Ross's Landing. They're hoping to get the roads open and the area cleared for public use as soon as possible. Riverside Drive between Martin Luther King and the Veterans Bridge still closed. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Expect drier and less humid weather out there through your nighttime hours. Comfortable overnight, lows 63 to 65. For Tuesday, a nice day with some sunshine, highs 85 to 87. For the midweek, continued mainly dry with highs back into the 80s. Personalized medical care for you and your family close to home. Hamilton Physician Group Primary Care in Calhoun is now open at 407 2nd Avenue. For more, 706-529-9041. And I'm Swarsheen 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM Plugged with Keon Rose on Nooga Radio and NoogaRadio.com. By the way, if you want to give us a call, share your sports opinion of the day, 423-800-8949. That's 800-8949. That would be your phone number. Now, one more thought on the NBA draft before I jump into my other golf opinion, because my favorite player in the draft is De'Aaron Fox. I think that, like, I look at him, I listen to him talk, and I don't know how old De'Aaron Fox is, 18, 19 years old. For an 18, 19-year-old, he's like the most mature person I've ever just heard just talk. And for me, I'm very blown away by that. If I'm going to be drafting you and saying, look, I'm giving you millions and millions of dollars, please don't ruin my franchise, that's the kind of guy that I want. When you tie that in also with the athleticism and the ability to finish around the basket, I'm a huge fan of that. Obviously, the shooting is kind of a concern with De'Aaron Fox, but shooting is a skill you can teach, right? When a guy's not fast, he better make up for it in other ways, because I can't teach fast. If a guy can't jump, I hope he makes up for it in other ways, because I can't teach you to jump. If you are a bad defender, I can teach you to be a decent defender, right? Like, we've seen that evolution with Steph Curry. There isn't a person on this earth 3 years ago that Steph Curry could really, really guard in the NBA that also is a guard. But Steph's gotten to the point now where he moves his feet a little bit. He stays in front of guys. And no, he's not locking you down and throwing away the key, but he slows you down enough for his defense to help, to rotate, to play, help defense around the basket. That is part of his defensive game. Like, if you're not great at defense, I can teach you defense. If you're not great at shooting, I can teach you shooting. If you just don't have the explosiveness and you're just not a pure athlete, like, there's no level of that I can teach. And even maturity can be learned. Granted, that's not something that you can teach. That's something that just has to happen over the course of your life, right? Maybe you're 5-6 years in the league before you finally get it. But even that's something that is accrued over time. The fact that you're De'Aaron Fox, you come in, you're already mature, you've got the intangibles, right? That they love him leadership-wise, all the teams that have worked him out. They think he'll be a great leader. They like his personality. They think that he is a good locker room guy, right? Like, those intangibles. And then you come in with the tangibles, the vertical, the explosive speed, the ability, I think, that to be a playmaker. All of that stuff. That, to me, I'm thrilled with that. That, to me, that's exactly what I want. And I find it bizarre and a little bit odd that we're not making as much noise about De'Aaron Fox, even though the buzz around him has obviously been heightened over the last few days. But he's come out of Kentucky, which ought to say something, right? Like, usually the best players out of Kentucky, with John Calipari, who is single-handedly, by the way, championing basketball in the South. The SEC basketball would be impossible to watch without Kentucky. And maybe we're going to start to see the change of that now with Mike White down in Florida, Rick Barnes in Tennessee, Frank Martin in South Carolina. Like, maybe we're going to start to see the change of that. But up until now, it's been tough. It's been absolutely tough. But John Calipari's been producing NBA talent his entire time in Kentucky. Say what it is that you want about John Calipari, that he may not be the greatest X's and O's coach. Say what you want about John Calipari. that he may not have come away with as many championships as a guy who comes away with all the recruits ought to have, right? Like if you just keep getting the best players and getting the best players and getting the best players, how is it possible that you only have one championship? Which, I mean, it's because it's tough to win in a giant, massive, 68-team tournament. But those are criticisms of him that are out there. But what you can't say about John Calipari, that you absolutely cannot say, is that he doesn't produce NBA talent. Because at this point, he has churned it out constantly. DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall and Anthony Davis and Derrick Rose and Rajon Rondo and person after person after person. And most of these guys have been explosive guards. John Calipari knows how to find him. If John Calipari gets a big man, I don't know if I can trust how good that big man is. I might wind up with Anthony Davis, who can do everything. Or I could wind up with Willie Cauley-Stein, who is good, but limited. I don't know which guy I'm winding up with. If John Calipari gets a guard, and that guard is someone we think is going to be in the top 5 in the draft, look out, that guy's good. Calipari knows guards. And so I just thought it was weird that we just did not necessarily have the level of respect for De'Aaron Fox, and I think to a lesser extent for Malik Monk later on in the draft, that we ought to have had. And I know this sort of felt like a weaker John Calipari class, but it's not. This group is every bit as talented as all the other ones. I think that when it comes down to it, John Calipari, I think when it comes to execution in games and getting guys to play at an elite level offensively, I think he struggles a little bit there. Defensively, he's fine. John Calipari teams play defense. And when they don't play defense, they run. Like his goal is to kill you in practice running if you're not gonna play defense. So for that, his teams play defense. He's not necessarily the greatest offensive-minded coach, but he knows his guards. To me, that guy is absolutely, De'Aaron Fox, the most talented guy in this draft. And I don't want to say it's not even close, because Markelle Fultz is the guy we're all looking at. And I feel bad in a way for Markelle Fultz in that we all have these doubts about him. But why do we really have these doubts about Markelle Fultz? Do we have these doubts because he's not a good player? You know why? Because we didn't see Markelle Fultz. We didn't see Markelle Fultz. That poor guy went to the University of Washington and all but vanished off the face of the earth. We didn't know that he existed until draft time. That was it. Just all the scouts were like, no, he's good. And we were like, what? How do you know? Who watched him? I've watched a lot of Markelle Fultz on YouTube, and I'll agree now, but at the time, he went to Washington and vanished. It's the greatest magic trick in the history of the earth. And so we didn't know that this guy was playing great basketball up there because they weren't winning games. They didn't make the tournament. The team wasn't very good. And apparently he went there to join a couple of guys that were really good that found themselves in the draft last year. So then he shows up and there isn't anybody there. So now he's playing with not only a couple of guys, with a bunch of guys that aren't going to be on an NBA roster ever, which you can't say about anybody else in this draft. Right? Josh Jackson played with a lot of great players at Kansas. De'Aaron Fox gets to play with Malik Monk. Lonzo Ball gets to play with the best shooting team in college basketball at UCLA. Poor Markelle Fultz shows up, and that whole team, there isn't an NBA caliber player on that roster that's not him. Not one. But of course, we didn't know he existed. It's not that he's not good. His team was devoid of any other NBA caliber talent. So I feel like if the scouts are looking at him and they say that he's good, I think you have to trust the scouts on this one. Because they said the same thing about Kristaps Porzingis. We had never heard of Kristaps Porzingis. And then, oh, look, Kristaps Porzingis is here. He's 7'3". He shoots threes. He dominates the rim. Who knew? The scouts knew. You gotta trust the scouts. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, 92.7 FM. This is the parity that we all wanted in golf. But we didn't want it in golf. we wanted it everywhere else. That's how we want our football. That's how we want our basketball. That's how we want everything. And when we don't get it, we complain. Except when we get it, we also complain. And I think that a lot of this just has to do with gratefulness, that we don't necessarily know what we want. We just want it to be good. That we all have that one friend. You ask them, hey, what movie do you want to watch? And you know, the moment you ask them, you're not watching a movie. But they don't know what they want. They don't know what they want. They just want it to be good. We have no parity in basketball. You start an NBA season, you know who's going to be in the finals. Like last year, we knew it was Cleveland and Golden State. There wasn't a chance that it was anybody else. The year before, we knew it was Cleveland and Golden State, and there wasn't a chance that it was anybody else. Like, barring some injury, there was 0% chance that it was anybody else at all. And we knew this. We absolutely knew this. And people have begun to complain about this, that we don't like super teams and we don't want players to show up on one team and gang up, even though that's how the NBA's always been. And you could pick any team from any era, and there are multiple all-stars to superstars on that team, starting with Jordan's Bulls. But go ahead and you could take Olajuwon's Rockets, and you could find Olajuwon and a bunch of all-stars. You could go back to the 80s and take Bird's Celtics, Magic's Lakers, and there are multiple Hall of Famers on both rosters. And who ruled the 80s? Bird's Celtics, Magic's Lakers. There's never been parity in basketball, but we suddenly want it, and we're not happy when we don't have it, right? Whenever we feel or detect like there's no parity in football, Alabama wins all the time. Yeah, they do. They're great. The other option, of course, is that Alabama's not great and everybody's average, which is what we have in golf. And that's the sport where we miss Tiger. And we miss Jack. We miss when someone dominates and we know who's going to win. I remember growing up watching Tiger Woods, and legitimately the question that we would ask before every major golf tournament was, are you taking Tiger or are you taking the field? Who was in the field? A bunch of really good golfers, but it didn't matter because Tiger was in the stratosphere and everyone else was beneath that. It was Tiger and the field. And I remember hearing this question before every major golf tournament. Are you taking Tiger or the field? The field, which included Vijay Singh and Sergio Garcia and Phil Mickelson and a bunch of golfers we all know are great. We know they're great. Retief Goosen, like a bunch of really great guys. It was Tiger of the field. And if you pick Tiger in a major, you were usually right. This is the most mind-boggling thing we've ever seen. And I think in a sport, in single-player sports especially, but in sports in general, we whine and complain when someone is dominating, but we miss them when they're gone. Like, we're going to miss Nick Saban at Alabama. When we don't have Nick Saban at Alabama, like, Alabama's not going to dominate like this forever. Sorry, Tide fans, but that's just the way that it is. They're not going to dominate like this forever, but we're going to miss it when it's not there. That's the way that the world works. And I do disagree with some people who believe that we need dynasties, that it has to be all traditional powers. I don't think so. Like, the Golden State Warriors aren't a traditional power, but I assure you, if they run the NBA for the next 5 years, like we all think that they will, that they will be what we want in that sport, which is just a dominant team playing at a very high level. And I think that we like to sit down and watch excellence. And when someone is good, consistently dominant, that's when we notice the excellence more. Because I don't want to hear that Dustin Johnson, who had not won a major until recently, wasn't dominant before. I don't really want to hear that Brooks Koepka wasn't dominant in this U.S. Open performance. And I don't want to hear that Sergio Garcia, when he won the Masters, hadn't been a great golfer previously. But the fact that you have 7 different guys winning the last 7 majors means that when a guy is great, when a guy is dominant in their performance, you don't notice the excellence as much. You don't notice the excellence as much. And I think that that is the true tragedy of all of this. That Brooks Koepka played a fantastic U.S. Open. That when you look at it in terms of how far under par was he 16 under? And you get hung up on all of that, and you use that to say, well, the golf course is the reason why. And then when you look at the amount of strokes that he actually took, he was only 4 better than Dustin Johnson if you count the number of strokes taken on the golf course. That he was still better than Dustin Johnson. And you have to actually think about that. That like Brooks Koepka has the ability to stick around and be a guy that continues to win golf tournaments. That in the last 7 tournaments that he's participated in, he has finished no worse than 21st, which is pretty high. He's been hanging around the top 20 this entire time, and we did not notice him because he was not winning. He's got the chance to stick around, and I'm sure we are going to find and catch fire on one of these guys, right? Like, we're just going to have a string of tournaments where a different guy keeps winning until somebody figures out how to dominate. Right? Like, we're going to see a bunch of new faces. Hideki Matsuyama, by the way, finished 3rd, I believe. And he's been finishing, top 25 in the last few tournaments as well. We're looking at an age where there's so many good to great guys. None of them really stand out. And for us to notice greatness, someone has to dominate. Someone really has to dominate. This is why we remember Magic and Bird and Jordan and LeBron. Tell me, though, in the 70s, when basically a different team was winning every single year in the NBA Finals, name a great player from that era. You can, but it takes a little bit longer, doesn't it? Just to find the Moses Malone and Wes Unseld. It takes a little bit longer. And the Iceman Gervins of the world. Like, it takes just a little bit longer for those guys' names to come to mind. Because when people aren't dominating, we just don't notice as much. And I don't think that that's necessarily an American thing, even though it does tie into America, that we feel like we dominate everything always. And we are very used to the prospect of dominance. And so if we're going to sit down and watch something, we're going to watch it dominate. We say we don't want the Warriors to rule the world, and yet the Warriors are in a position to rule the world. Ratings have never been better. When LeBron James went down to Miami and it looked like the Heat could rule the basketball world, ratings were never better. When Kobe and Shaq were together and they were ruling the basketball world, ratings were never better. The league was in trouble, was in financial trouble before the Lakers and the Celtics took turns dynastying the 80s out. And it wasn't until that happened that they saved, and this is not an exaggeration, they saved the NBA. And then Michael Jordan came and dominated and took it to a level that it is now. Like, we're always going to need dynasties, and maybe not all the times in sports, but I guarantee you the times that you will remember the most fondly and the times that you will remember as the best times were the times when there was a dynasty. We like to see something with control. We like to see something with obvious control. This is why people believe in conspiracy theories. Like, the idea that somebody is in control is better than randomness, just pure randomness. Even if a conspiracy is bad, you'd rather believe that there's a bad person in control than nobody at all. Like, we don't mind booing Kevin Durant and calling him a villain. We don't mind calling LeBron James a villain. Like, they don't like that, obviously. I don't think that you wake up in the morning and think to yourself, like, I want to be the bad guy. Kobe did, but Kobe's crazy. Everybody else, you don't want to be the bad guy, but if you're the bad guy, we watch. And if you're the good guy, we watch. Just dominate. Like, it doesn't even matter. And I just wonder if we're not more hung up on the domination than the skill that it takes to dominate. Because we certainly don't pay attention when the domination's not there. Same skills, but now you don't have somebody repeating every year or every tournament. Like, can you watch the men's game or the women's game of tennis? We watch the women's game. Why? Serena dominates. Where is the man that is dominating tennis post Federer? We don't have it. We just don't have it. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Phone number is 423-800-8949.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Multiple drive-by shootings in the Chattanooga area. The first one on Wilcox Boulevard. A man was driving along when gunshots rang out. He was hit and was involved in a car crash. EMS rushed him to the hospital. The other on 20th Street and Market. When gunshots rang out, another man was hit multiple times. He also rushed to the hospital. Violent crimes investigators trying to find out who the shooter is. A fiery crash on Man Gap Road. Life Force helicopters extricating victims and rushing them to the hospital. Children trapped inside a car next to another burning car. One person was killed. The Sheriff's Office traffic crimes investigators are trying to find out exactly how this crash happened. Cleanup operations are now underway after the festival left tons of garbage on Ross's Landing. They're hoping to get the roads open and the area cleared for public use as soon as possible. Riverside Drive between Martin Luther King and the Veterans Bridge still closed. Russell Stroud, Nooga Radio News, now.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Expect drier and less humid weather out there through your nighttime hours. Comfortable overnight, lows 63 to 65. For Tuesday, a nice day with some sunshine, highs 85 to 87. For the midweek, continued mainly dry with highs back into the 80s. Personalized medical care for you and your family close to home. Hamilton Physician Group Primary Care in Calhoun is now open at 407 2nd Avenue. For more, 706-529-9041. And I'm Swarsheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr on Nooga Radio AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
The American Dream. Home ownership. Are you building equity for your landlord? Why not build that equity for yourself and your family? Rent No More is a no obligation, no cost program. It's designed to teach you the steps necessary and to coach you all along the path to home ownership. Integrity Mortgage Group is owned and operated by local expert Jeff Woody Woodburn. Jeff has been in the mortgage business for over 15 years. Born and raised right here in the Chattanooga area. Jeff is also known as the Lone Ranger. He's helped countless hundreds. Really eager to help you too. So don't wait. Come on, call Danielle right now. You need to reserve your spot for this exciting, informative event. Space is limited, so call now to reserve yours. It's free. 423-517-8004. 423-517-8004. Call 423-517-8004. Hey, Nooga Radio is proud to partner with Integrity Mortgage Group to bring you Rent No More. Reserve your spot for this exciting, informative event. Space is limited, so call now to reserve yours. It's free. 423-517-8004. 423-517-8004. Call 423-517-8004. Stop building equity for your landlord. Live the American dream. Home ownership with Rent No More. We'll see you there.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
He stole out so much cash, such a huge mountain of cash, that he's become a national star. Rick Davis, you know the story. Cash, 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 and more cash. People can't believe it. They want to see it. And now Rick Davis has a new TV show. National TV, USA and Canada. He's got the gold and silver, diamonds and rings. You get dizzy just thinking about it. Rick's selling, Rick's buying. Cash, 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 and more cash. And now a mountain of cash catching the Hollywood spotlight. You know where it is, Brainerd Road. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Cash, 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 and national TV cash. That's really big. Everyone wants to see it. Money flying out the door. Rick Davis is America's jeweler. It's better than Hollywood. It's right here. Cash, 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 and more cash. Rick Davis, Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road.
You love me. You really love me.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, 92.7 FM. You know, Fox does not necessarily have what many would consider to be the best coverage of golf, just generally golf. CBS does a really great job. I would go CBS over Fox most times, but I don't see Fox's coverage as being bad. I think a lot of people overplay that, most certainly. But Joe Buck made a mistake at the end of that tournament. That is, it makes you want to cringe a little bit. Yeah, because it is awkward, and because it is on the record and associated with this man forever now, which is this. So Brooks Koepka wins the U.S. Open. And afterwards, he was met and hugged and kissed by his girlfriend, Jenna Sims. And Joe Buck misidentified Jenna Sims as Brooks Koepka's ex-girlfriend, Becky Edwards. And it's as awkward as you think it is. And I don't know what to do after that. And that's always recorded. Like, if you go back and watch yourself winning the U.S. Open, you now always have to hear that. Which is kind of crazy. I think it's kind of crazy. Especially considering it's Joe Buck. Joe Buck, who is often criticized for not being enthusiastic enough. Golf is the sport where you don't have to be enthusiastic. Like, there ought to be no way, if you're Joe Buck, to mess up golf. People get mad at Joe Buck about baseball. People get mad about Joe Buck about football. Those are the only two sports I think Joe Buck does. But Joe Buck in golf, like, no one ought to ever complain about Joe Buck in golf. Because everybody complains about Jim Nantz and everything. They don't ever complain about Jim Nantz in golf. Like, some things just go together. They just make sense. Joe Buck in golf? Yeah, I buy that. I buy that. Except no, I can't buy Joe Buck in golf. Because Joe Buck is out here identifying the man's girlfriend as his ex-girlfriend, which, hopefully that ended on great terms. Otherwise, that's just a painful rewatch. Like, you wouldn't go back and watch yourself winning the U.S. Open, because if I won the U.S. Open, that would be all I would watch at that point. And cancel my appointment with any other TV show or sporting event. We're done. It's me winning the U.S. Open, especially if I'm Brooks Koepka, and I don't know that I ever imagined that I would. And now, tied to that moment is the man's ex-girlfriend. Forever. He started naming all of the stuff that she did, that she was a soccer player at, what was it, University of Florida? It just started naming all the stuff that she did. And that is the most awkward thing there. I think Fox is going to get better at covering golf. I think that's a possibility. So Antonio Brown, and jump to the NFL here. Antonio Brown met with Commissioner Goodell, and they posted a really this is just the awkward time now. They posted a really awkward video, and it was a celebration video. Antonio Brown was calling Roger Goodell the greatest commissioner because he's allowing celebrations again. By the way, this is the same commissioner who fined Antonio Brown a grand total of $24,309 last season for his celebrations, including the beginning of the season where he was twerking, and celebrations that ranged from that to far less excessive than that. And he accumulated quite a bit of money. I believe there was also a $57,733 total, if you include all games, including the postseason. So, yeah, the NFL's made quite a pretty penny off of Antonio Brown dancing, because the NFL for a very long time has been very adamant that you shall not dance. It's not happening. Except now they've changed their stance on dancing. And we, for ages, have called the NFL the No Fun League. Yeah, that's what NFL stands for, because we were being clever. They're the No Fun League. You can't dance. You can't hit people the way you used to. This league is becoming no fun. But here's the thing. I think Roger Goodell's listening. I mean, he's brought back the celebrations. He's trying to make the NFL draft more of a festival and less of this gigantic formality. He's trying to make it more fun. He's trying to make the awards ceremony more fun. He's trying to make the Pro Bowl actually interesting. It's not working, but he's trying. And I just think it's interesting because people hate Roger Goodell so much. They hate him so much. And I can't think of a single commissioner before Roger Goodell that actually cared whether or not we like him. Roger Goodell actually cares whether or not we like him. Think about this. Because none of the other commissioners do, right? Adam Silver is seen as a very cool commissioner. But Adam Silver happens to think like an NBA fan. Adam Silver is not trying to be liked by NBA fans. And one day he's going to make a decision and then we'll all turn on him like we always do. But before him, David Stern made the decision to market Magic and market Bird and save the NBA. And we loved him then. And then now we hate David Stern. Like, David Stern was the most hated commissioner for the longest time. And David Stern didn't care. Like, David Stern was not interested in us liking him. I remember he taunted the crowd one time that they booed him at the NBA draft, and he said, "Boo louder." David Stern didn't care whether or not we liked him. That's not what he's about. He's just making decisions that he thinks are best for the league. Not just David Stern. Bud Selig didn't care when he was commissioner of Major League Baseball. Paul Tagliabue didn't care when he was commissioner. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball now, I think he cares about what fans want, and he wants to expand the fan experience. But that's because baseball is third behind football and basketball. You got to make up that distance. But I don't think that Rob Manfred thinks when he wakes up in the morning, do fans like me? I do think Roger Goodell wants us to like him, and he actually cares. And I think that there's some credit that he deserves for that. I just think he does deserve a little bit of credit for actually caring what fans think. Now, has Roger Goodell been clumsy and ham-handed in how he's handled this stuff? Of course he has. But when Roger Goodell first initiated the ability to discipline players harshly, and if you disrespect the shield, I'm going to discipline you harshly. Initially, we act like that's a bad thing now. Initially, people liked that. They liked that Roger Goodell was hard on people for things that they did outside of the game of football that caused the game to look bad, that caused themselves to look bad. Like, yeah, if you're going to be driving drunk, you deserve to be suspended. And no one's going to sit there and feel sorry for you. And I think Roger Goodell thought that was going to go over well with fans. And he wasn't wrong. It went over well with fans. People actually liked that at first. And then people started getting disciplined for really petty stuff. And then the whole Ray Rice situation got mishandled because I don't think the league wanted to suspend Ray Rice. But then the video came out. And when the video came out, it was 10 times worse than whatever we imagined happened with Ray Rice. And then you had to suspend Ray Rice. And then you had to suspend him indefinitely. And then by the time you let him come back to the game of football, he's too old to play the game and nobody wants him. That whole thing got botched and boggled. And in the middle of all of that, we decided that we didn't like Roger Goodell anymore. We just decided collectively as a hive mind, we did not like Roger Goodell anymore. And the man has not been able to do anything regarding that since. And when they boo Roger Goodell at the NFL draft, Roger Goodell does not say boo louder. Right? Roger Goodell doesn't put his hand to his ear to make sure that you've booed as hard as you want to boo, to know that he doesn't care. Because Roger Goodell's not that guy. Roger Goodell wants the fans to like him. And anything that he does to and for the game is so that fans like him. And I'm saying be careful, because you boo Roger Goodell like he's the commissioner you don't want. And you haven't seen the commissioner you don't want. And one day you're not going to have Roger Goodell. One day either he's going to retire or the owners are going to all get together and decide, Roger Goodell's maybe not the guy for us. We're going to choose somebody else moving forward. One of these days you're going to get the commissioner you don't like. And you're going to miss Roger Goodell. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Want to revisit a story from the first hour where we talked about the epidemic of SEC quarterback transfers. Even though it's not an epidemic, it's not limited just to the SEC. And quarterback transfers, I believe, have helped the SEC in recent years just as much as it's hurt it. It's a 50-50 deal. This is not an issue of an epidemic, right? This is not an issue of players being weak-willed and weak-minded. And, oh, no, they can't handle the competition, which is what Nick Saban suggested last year when Blake Barnett transferred out of Alabama. That, yes, obviously you're going to be upset because quarterback depth is important. And you'd like to see a guy stick around and compete in case your starter goes down, then he's there to go. But come on, man. He was an upperclassman and you started a freshman over him. And you're saying he can stay there and compete. But let's be honest. There wasn't anything that Jalen Hurts could do to lose that job. Because he's athletic, he's strong-armed, he's a smart young man. There's nothing that they could have done for Jalen Hurts to lose his job outside of Jalen Hurts having like a 4-interception performance, which we all know. He didn't throw the ball enough to have some kind of 4-interception performance. Blake Barnett looked at it objectively and said, I want to play somewhere else. I want to play at a school that wants to start me. And this is about commitment. Alabama had committed to starting Blake Barnett previously, and then they changed their minds. And Blake Barnett did not get hurt. Blake Barnett did not suddenly start playing worse. Alabama just decided they saw somebody better, which is fine. I have no problem with that. But then If Blake Barnett turns around and decides that he found a school that's better for his chances to play quarterback or his education or literally whatever other reason he wants, because he doesn't have to justify this with us or anybody else, then he's free to go. He ought to be free to go. It's the mobility that makes everything better. That's what makes America great. That if you want to go somewhere and do something, you can. It just seems to me that we want guys to stick around and be committed to a school that's not committed to them. And that is the most un-American thing that there possibly is, because that's how everything else works. If a job at someplace else is going to pay me more or treat me better, I can go. And I go. Because that's how jobs work. That's how the whole system works. That's how the whole system stays at a very high level of quality. That if a job wants top talent, then you're going to have to pay. The reason why jobs that are hard to learn get to pay so much. That's why doctors get paid a lot. That's why engineers and scientists get paid a lot, because it's hard to learn that job. And they have the freedom and mobility to move whenever they want to. College players, you say you're teaching them to become adults. You say you're teaching them how real life works, and you throw them in this system that works virtually not at all like real life. Not at all. You can't go anywhere. You can't transfer. You can't make money off of your name. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that young man at the University of Central Florida, Donald De La Haye, the kicker that's also a YouTuber, and he makes a lot of money off of YouTube. And he talks about his time as a college kicker. That's part of what's on his channel. It's just his daily life. And he's got a lot of viewers. A lot of people like to follow him on YouTube. And the school came to him and said, you might be violating some NCAA rules. So we're just letting you know that if they come to us to tell you to leave the team, we might have to kick you off the team. And he's decided to continue making videos. It's what he likes to do. It's what he wants to do. He's going to school to be a marketing major. He is literally practicing marketing. And while the NCAA hasn't said anything about it yet, they could shut him down if they wanted to, which is absurd. That's not at all how real life works. You can't be this two-faced. It seems impossible. But we like it when the NCAA is this two-faced. Like, we agree. And I don't understand this. I will never be on the side of the system when there are players. The players, and I say this all the time, the players are more like me and you than Mark Emmert in the NCAA. They're more like me and you than Bob Kraft, the owner of the Patriots. They're more like me and you than Jerry Jones. Like, you want the players to play for your team. Like, your interest and the owner's interest are aligned. But you need to remember that the players are more like you than you are like the owners. And you should never forget that. When players want to transfer, let them transfer. And you don't want it to be mercenary. You don't want it to feel like they're just jumping to the next best opportunity. But that's life, one. And two, how could anything a college athlete does be mercenary? We are constantly reminded that they are not paid. You don't pay them to do the thing they're doing. That's not even being mercenary. Mercenaries make money. They're not being paid. They're not being compensated. You're saying that they're getting a college education, which is fair, except their college education, and let me do the math on this one. Their college education is worth thousands. And as a result of them playing in the game, you have TV contracts worth billions with a B. Between Fox and ESPN and CBS Those TV deals are worth billions. So there's still money being made that these kids are not making. But now they can't transfer. That's an epidemic. You know, I mean, God forbid you stay committed to a guy that you recruited through thick and thin. And by the way, the SEC's benefited from this as well. Jarrett Stidham is at Auburn. And the only reason why we can talk about Auburn, and when we talk about the SEC West, the reason why we're not talking about just Alabama basically being the giant T-Rex that stomps through that division is because of two transfer quarterbacks, Jarrett Stidham and Danny Etling. Jarrett Stidham has made Auburn relevant, just relevant. Gus Malzahn, if Jarrett Stidham is 3/4 of the player that we think he is, Gus Malzahn will owe his job to Jarrett Stidham. And Danny Etling is an average quarterback, right? Like, he's not winning any awards. He is a powerfully average quarterback. But need I remind you that your other option was Brandon Harris, who you ran out of town, right? Like, Brandon Harris is playing college football in North Carolina now because he was just very much not wanted on that team by the coaching staff. So your other option was Brandon Harris, and we all knew he wasn't getting it done. I hope he does get it done at North Carolina, right? Fresh start, new coach. Larry Fedora is a quarterback developer. You got Malik Zaire coming into Florida. You are aided by these quarterback transfers as much as you are hurt by them. So to complain about them and call them an epidemic when, if anything, it's your fault. You don't develop the quarterbacks well enough. And then when you don't develop them enough, you give up on them and try with somebody newer and younger and more fresh. And then they transfer away. And it's this cycle that repeats itself over and over and over again. And then you turn around and blame the players for being too soft and not necessarily wanting to fight and tough it out and grind through something that you promised them. That doesn't seem fair, nor does it make any sense at all. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Thank you for joining me today and just letting me be a part of your day. Remember, folks, it's not how you started, how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you all in 24 hours.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident, raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Picture that curl of steam rising from your fresh-made pizza. And in a flash, let it take you aloft, teasing all your senses.